taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Our rat's ass about
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free.
Can't start to all crazy. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up, and welcome to not another CFB pod. This is the weekend review. We just saw week 2 CFB, week 1 NFL went down. We had a little bit of everything. This is going to be for a preview show. I think it's going to be a pretty packed show. How we feeling, Beast?
Feeling good. We got Monday Night Football rocking. Got big week ahead of us too.
Yeah, we're on Seattle tonight. It's currently 10-10 in the second quarter. So we'll check in maybe later and see how that's going. But we have Seahawks +7, or I do. I don't know if
I do as well. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're on it. This was a huge Fade the Public day, and I think it was probably a huge Fade the Public weekend overall. I mean, we'll get into the individual games, but man, crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this weekend was crazy in college and NFL. A lot of upsets,
Yeah. With that said, I've got an announcement for this podcast. Now, I've been keeping this a secret for a while. I've known about this for a while, but I'm excited, proud, and privileged to announce that I will be at the OU Nebraska game in Lincoln, Nebraska this weekend. OU's going to go up there and kick their butts. Nebraska's finished. It's kind of sad, but they're finished. They just fired Scott Frost after getting upset by Georgia Southern at home right before the OU game. Unreal. If they wait like 2 more weeks, his buyout is like in half, but they just have no choice because the program is in such disarray right now. But it's still going to be a packed house in Lincoln. We're going to be meeting up with the boys from CODA, the CODA Sports Gambling Network, that is. Shout out. And it's going to be electric, man. There's a bunch of us going. I'm going to be driving by myself. It's like a 7.5-hour drive from where I am. So I need a lot of podcasts to queue up, man. It's going to be something else, but very excited for this weekend. OU Nebraska, lots of content on Potato Gobbler Twitter. So be ready for it, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited for all this content. I'm gonna have to live through PG this weekend. It's gonna be a good weekend. All the boys are gonna be putting out some good content, so stay tuned, guys. It's gonna be a fun weekend overall. Even for the Nebraska fans, there's got to be a little bit of life, with Mickey Joseph taking over, as interim. So it's better than Scott Frost, right?
It almost has to be. I mean,
yeah, right.
It almost has to be. Really tough start for them this year. 1-2 right now. And even their 1 win was in doubt for a little bit. But like I said, Nebraska fans are going to show out. This is a rivalry after all. Although I feel like as of late, it's kind of respectful. I feel like people on both sides are just kind of cool with each other now. It's kind of more of a respect thing since the teams aren't in the same conference anymore. But I can't wait to see it. I don't know if I think a lot of OU fans are going, and I'm interested to see what their reaction to Nebraska fans is. I hope it's classy. I hope they don't do what I did and trash the program. I was just doing that for content. But if I see a lot of that, I'm going to be a little sad because I don't have anyone's back in a fight. We're not fighting at the games. I'm there to have fun. So no shot. I'm squaring up with anybody. It's going to be a good time. Our guy Corey's going to be there. Our guy Pumbaa and Pace and DJ, and who's the other one? Oh, Kyle, obviously, the other OU fan. Yeah. So it's going to be electric. Going to be a good group of people. I can't wait. But with that said, Beast came up with a great idea for a new segment for the review show. We're calling it One Big Take. This is your one big takeaway from the weekend, or it can be, a thought about one team or one game, or maybe it was the officials all weekend were bad. We're just going to be giving you what we took away from this weekend. I've got a good one, but I'm gonna let Beast lead this one off because it was his idea.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from the weekend, and it was something that I didn't have entering last weekend because I was high on Baylor, but I'm looking at BYU's schedule, and BYU has a good chance at just running the table and getting themselves into the CFP. I think their biggest matchup, at this point, is going to be either Oregon or Notre Dame. And really, watching Oregon and Notre Dame right now, like, those are beatable teams. I mean, Notre Dame just dropped their game to Marshall. Like, they looked awful. They weren't necessarily outstanding in that week 1 against Ohio State. It was kind of like a moral victory, even though they lost by, over a score. But I like this BYU team. We talked about Jaron Hall. I kind of wasn't expecting it. I kind of thought that they'd drop one of these games like Baylor, but they looked great. I know this was an overtime, win, but Baylor's a good school, so I think they got a good shot at running the table, and that was not a team I put in my, top 4.
Yeah, same here. I think we noted on this podcast, but BYU has more returning starters, or I don't think that was how it was worded. It's returning experience. So that's guys that
Right.
got snaps. Maybe they weren't starters, but they played a lot. I think they led the country in that stat, most experience coming back. My only thing is with them, now they are at 12. They took a 9 spot jump this week in the AP poll. The Notre Dame, for them, that's no longer going to be a big game. So Oregon themselves are also ranked 25th. So
Yeah.
now you're talking about they're only going to add maybe one more ranked win to that resume. That might
Right.
get tough. But if they're undefeated, dude, like I don't see how you can't put them in at this point.
Yeah, and that's my thing is I started looking at their schedule, and I'm like, there's Boise, like,
Do
there's
they
not
not
a ton of,
do they not play Utah this year?
I don't know if they're with Utah. I know they'll have Stanford, but yeah, I mean, I think they're actually going to have a pretty open schedule, ahead. So we'll see. I think they're going to go and play Arkansas at home. So
Okay.
that'll be a tough matchup. I
And
guess.
that's a ranked win. too.
Yeah, I guess I didn't
If they can
acknowledge
get it.
Arkansas. But I'm looking at their schedule. I'm like, this is doable, and I kind of
Yeah.
was a little bit lower on BYU than some others entering the year, but.
Yeah,
They
so
got a chance.
that matchup with Oregon is this weekend, this coming weekend, and then in October they have the Notre Dame Arkansas back to back.
Yeah.
So that is, but that that's going to be an interesting game in Notre Dame. That's in the new Las Vegas Stadium, Allegiant Stadium.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, I mean, kind of a neutral site crowd, so not too tough. And then, like you said, Arkansas is coming to Utah. That'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
That could mess around and be like a top 10 matchup. It really could. So we'll
Right.
just keep our eyes out. That's a good take. I like it. Here's mine. It's a little spicy. I'm not going to lie, especially because I have Boomer Sooner above my head. I just talked about OU for 10 minutes. They're my team. I get it. It sounds biased, but I think Texas is not back, and I'm willing to put my name on it. I think Texas is not back. They played Alabama great this weekend. Awesome. Pat on the back. Okay. Their quarterback's in a sling. They still found a way to fight this whole game. Here's the thing. Bama didn't have their best performance. I think you can just look at it and say yes. Now, the defense for Texas did do some things that threw Bama off their game, and they should get credit for that. They do. My thing is, I think this was Bama playing a bad game. This was Texas being up as they get. Like, this was basically Texas OU for them. I mean, this was a huge home game. They had tons of recruits there. Lots of people watching on TV. Obviously, I think it was like the most streamed game or something on Saturday. Yeah. Absolutely valiant effort. But at the same time, they made mistakes. Like, those mistakes they made are the reasons they lost to Texas last year. Missed an easy field goal. I think they had another one blocked or anyway, there were just mistakes in special teams. There were blows on defense. One of Bama's only touchdowns on the day was like an 80-yard run right off tackle. So to me, there's just holes in it. And I don't know how long Quinn Ewers is going to be out, but if he's out for any extended amount of time, I mean, their schedule ramps up real quick. They play OU pretty soon. I don't know what the outlook is for him yet. I just think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. I saw people, Joel Klatt has Texas in his top 10 for a close loss against Alabama. And I get it. But they've got talent on the roster. It's never been the problem. That talent will get up for the right game. Watch their game against Texas. Watch Texas's game against Kansas State this year. Guarantee you Kansas State runs them over. We'll come back to this if I'm right. If we're not, we're going to bury this deep. No one's going to know about this. I just think Texas might not be back yet, and I get that I'm biased. But that's a big take for me because I just saw someone who's a respected media member have them in their top 10 because they just barely lost. And to me, those mistakes are still there that they were making last year. It just looks a little shinier. That can wear off pretty quick. So we'll see.
No, I like that. I know it probably comes off as bold, but I think there's a ton of people that, after a close loss to Alabama are suddenly like anointing them like Big 12 champs. Yeah. And I'm like, it's just, I'm not seeing it 100% here because you still have, like, they're going to have to travel to Oklahoma State. And I think Oklahoma State's going to be a really solid,
they look nice this weekend.
So we'll see. I mean, you still have Baylor there. I know they just lost to BYU, but they played good. You
Yeah, it
still
was
have
a
Oklahoma.
down to the wire game. Right.
Yeah, so it's I'm not so like you said, they could still for sure finish like third or fourth in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, nah, that's not good enough. That you're not back.
Right.
Like that's
Right.
not enough to be back, in my opinion.
Right.
Third in the Big 12. So we'll see what
Exactly.
happens. They have a lot of games left, so they got to prove more to
Yep.
me before I'm going to say that. You know.
Yeah, whole season out in front of them, and this could blow up in my face. But here's the thing. I'm going to put my name on it right now just because I think I'm seeing a lot of similar issues. They've still got tons of talent. That's never been in question. But those like game management, big time moments like missing the field goal, missing, fourth and inches, doing things
Yeah.
like this, that's where that costs you games. And I mean, they lost to Kansas last year for a lot of the same reasons. So we'll see.
Yeah.
This is a great segue because we need to get into our talk about this weekend in college football. Insane upsets, insane. We had some overtime matchups, which we'll get to. First, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors of this podcast and another big shout out to the Coda Sports Gambling Network. But this podcast is sponsored by BetCoda. BetCoda Sportsbook is a South Dakota owned and operated sportsbook located in the Midnight Star Casino in Deadwood, South Dakota, serving customers in the state. As you enter the Midnight Star, you are swept into the past with a grand staircase, stunning woodwork, and the elegance of the chandelier. They offer the best lines in Deadwood, so stop by and mention the Coda Sports Gambling Network to receive a BetCoda t-shirt. Play responsibly. Must be 21 years or older to wager. Gambling problems or concerns? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right, B, so let's talk some college football, man. My betting-wise weekend college football was not great, but I was close on some. I was way off on Bama, that's for sure. I had Bama team total over, and I had Bama spread. Neither one really got close. What about you?
I actually did pretty good on Saturday. I ended up going 4-2-1. The only play
Nice.
that really was, I would say, stupid looking was I took Virginia as my money line dog.
I saw that they got killed.
At no point did they look like they were even going to come close. I kept thinking, well, Armstrong's going to get going. He hasn't. He kind of is looking shaky this year. I looked like I saw a tweet earlier today, and it was like the top 5 lowest QB ratings, and I'm like,
he's like the 5th lowest.
yeah, that's not good for a guy. I just was saying, yeah, this is a future NFL guy. Like,
well, this is the thing with that team is they were great last year, and he was great last year on offense, but they did lose that offensive coordinator, and I think that's played a bigger role through 2 weeks than we thought it would. So, I mean, that's just another one of those things. We're going to pick up these data points as we go. We've now got 2 weeks in our pocket, and I feel like we've got a lot clearer image of what's going on. And historically, throughout my betting, this is when I start picking up a little bit through the mid and then really in the late season. So we just got to pick it up. We got to see these games with our eyes, and we got to adjust. That's what it's all about.
Right.
All right. So let's talk some games. Right off the bat, we had Alabama, Texas. Alabama, I think they look shaky, but Texas's defense did some things. Bryce Young was not himself. One of his worst games that you'll see. But at the same time, he did have a couple big plays on that final drive where they got into field goal range and won that thing. So, I mean, he still looked the part when the time, when he was needed to. It's just on that consistent basis, we didn't see what we normally saw.
Yeah, I think that was similar to what it was like with, Alabama when they played A&M last year. And, granted, they lost game last year. It's just about like sometimes when Alabama's in, an environment where it's very, very hostile, and it was, those Longhorn fans showed up last week.
Yeah, it was loud.
That's where I think the defense kind of fed off of it. You had that kind of ugly game, and Bryce Young, he didn't have his best game, like you said, but I still think Alabama opens it up here at some point, and we probably look back at this game and we're like, if they played this in like week 9, they might blow out Texas, but we'll see.
But hey, credit to Texas. Quinn Ewers, the quarterback, does go down with a collarbone really early in the game. It's a much different game, I think, if he plays, because he was pretty surgical. They did a great job, I thought. I don't know if you were in the group chat whenever that game was going on, but they started the game just with a lot of short passes for him, lots of easy stuff, and then they hit him with a big play. And you could tell his confidence soared from that moment. Fortunately, he kind of gets tackled, funny jumps in the air and trying to throw the ball away, and kind of got drove onto his looked like a collarbone. I don't know if they've come out and officially said, a timetable, official injury, anything like that. But good effort from Texas, but they fall 20-19 to Alabama. We got to get into some of these other results, though. There were some crazy games.
Yeah.
One of the funniest games, Beast, I think, was Texas A&M losing at home to Appalachian State, 17-14.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just the fact that it was at home was, the big shocker. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen the video of the Texas
The yell
A&M
leader.
yell, the Aggie yell leader, dogging, App State. These guys can't read, they can't read a map. They're just a bunch of hillbillies, and then it blows up in your face. That's why you don't talk shit. Especially I know that it was just like every fan base is going to talk smack, but it blew up in his face and he looked like a real idiot.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that particular video you're talking about, Beast, is they spent all day today, Texas A&M did, getting that video off the internet. They were able to strike it as DMCA because it came from a Texas A&M stream. So you would have had to have recorded it from their stream. And I guess that they just weren't okay with that. But by now, there's enough versions of it that basically everyone's seen it. But they spent all day, especially going at Barstool, I saw, every time they tweeted that video, they took it down.
Yeah.
Not the tweet itself, but what they can do is they can strike the video. So whoever posted the video originally has to take it down, which then makes the link not work. And so there's no video. But anyway, they were grinding in the lab, getting this thing down. We got to talk about A&M, though. Haynes King, this quarterback. I don't know, man. They only scored 7 points on offense this week. The other 7 came on a kick return where I thought there was a couple pretty blatant blocking the backs, and they got away with it. Tied it up at 14-14, I think, at that point. But Appalachian State, they just kept running the ball.
Yeah, that App State team's not bad. That's why, it makes me laugh more probably hearing them, talk so much smack entering that week. Like, they just had this. Yeah, like App State's always a good program. They have a history of upsetting big time schools. And we saw last week, how good they were against UNC. Like, they have a good offense.
One little play goes a different way. They're 2-0 right now.
I'm like, dude, this isn't a team that you take lightly. And they clearly did. They said, oh, this is going to be easy. Just a bunch of hillbillies. Hey, they had it coming. They had it coming.
You just can't do that. Texas A&M, man, and I'm sorry if you're an A&M fan. We're not going to rag on you the whole pod, but so those guys are yell leaders, and basically those are their cheerleaders. They don't really have traditional cheerleaders. I don't know the history, but it's tons of tradition there at A&M. It was just kind of funny, like you said, blew up in their face. And this is the annual Aggie roller coaster. It happens every year. It just, the fall off happened a little earlier. So we'll see if they can rebound. But I got to think if the season goes the way it looked it was going to go this Saturday, Jimbo might be out by the end of the year. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
the
see.
other
There's
thing is as you mentioned, Haynes King hasn't looked very good. I thought they were going to start Max Johnson to start the year, who actually was pretty good down
He's the
at
LSU
LSU.
transfer. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I thought Johnson was pretty good at LSU last year. Maybe I'm missing something in Jimbo's, there's a reason he's coaching. And I'm not, but I feel like you got to give Johnson a chance at some point.
At this point, I bet they do.
Yeah. I don't know why they're not, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think at this point you just about got to. I did see a bit about Jimbo's offense and how it seems like it's expired in 2014 and it's not the same with these different, but they had Jameis Winston and they haven't had a Jameis Winston again. Nobody even close. No. In fact, the best quarterback they've had is freaking Kellen Mond, who is just about as bland as it gets.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. Shout out Kellen Mond, our guy. I want to move on though, Beast, because we had some other crazy ones.
Yeah.
Marshall upsets Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. The final score 26-21.
Yeah,
what's going on?
This Marcus Freeman, tenure is not good. He's 0-3 now.
0-3 as a head coach.
Once again, he was there before the game. There was like a video of him before the game saying, "Oh, there's no better place to get our first win of our tenure." I'm like, dude, what do you mean? Like, you can't be saying that you got these wins in the bag. Everybody should be learning from week 2 of college football.
Yeah, and this is another Sun Belt upset. We've got another one of these to discuss, but Marshall's another one of these programs, Beast. They're not bad. Marshall's really, they've been solid in the Sun Belt. They haven't been just, beating teams like this at home and like on the regular. Like you could say App State should definitely be on your radar.
Yeah.
Marshall probably should be too.
Yeah, no, I think the Sun Belt's really showing out and trying to prove, why, they should be, I know App State's always been around, but some of these Sun Belt teams shouldn't be underrated, I guess.
Yeah, man, we got to start respecting the Sun Belt a little bit more. Notre Dame, obviously, this was a huge blow for them. I don't know. I mean, they play Cal next week, so I really feel like I want to say that's an easy win, but at the same time, they just lost to a Group of 5 team. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Right.
Let's get into another gigantic upset in the Sun Belt, though. This was our team of the season. I'm just calling it now. Georgia Southern upsets Nebraska in Nebraska. Shocking. They fire our guy Scott Frost on Sunday. As soon as, I don't know if you noticed it, but the announcement started coming out like 12:30 on Sunday.
Yeah.
So like right after kickoff noon here.
Yeah.
So 1 for you, but yeah, right after that's when that leaks, that story comes out. Just crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, none of us could have predicted that this season was going to go this bad. I was talking up Nebraska entering week 1. Like I had them in that week 0 matchup against Northwestern.
Me too.
So it's been so downhill with Scott Frost. I'm almost happy for the Nebraska fans just because it's kind of like finally he's done. Like you don't have to worry about, because if he would have done like an 8 or 9 win season this year, do you keep him around? And then it's just this mediocre. It's time to move on. Nebraska's a program that has so much history. Bring in somebody that's going to be like a big dog,
That's why I wonder if they did that because they thought, I mean, this spread this weekend with OU is only like an 11-point spread. So I don't know if they thought, well, we don't want to give him a chance to beat OU because if he beats OU, we're not getting him out of here. I don't know. It seems like, I think you're right, though. I think my pulse or my gauge of the pulse of Nebraska fans is they're just excited not to have to back this guy up anymore. No, like beating around, we're the best 3-9 team ever, or whatever. Like none of that anymore. They can just move on with their lives. But that was a crazy game. But if that defense looks anything like that against OU, man, it's going to be a long day for the Cornhuskers.
There's a potential that it gets out of hand. I mean, that quarterback on Georgia Southern was just moving the ball with ease. He threw for like 410 yards when I saw the stats this morning when I was looking it up again. I was
they
like,
ran the ball pretty well too.
Yeah, they were dominating. It was like 600 something total yards. Like that can't happen, dude.
Not to Georgia Southern. No, Georgia Southern, another Sun Belt team, and they're not awful either, but they're. If you're thinking Appalachian State's up here, this tier 1, I mean, they're probably tier 3, maybe tier 2.5, somewhere in there. So they're not even on that same level as far as program wise. So crazy, man. I couldn't believe that one. Let's get to some of these ranked games though, because we had a pretty sick game between Baylor and BYU going down in Utah. BYU able to upset Baylor 26-20 in overtime. This one was a good one, man. I love watching these games that happen in Utah. The weirdest stuff happens. I was on the under. Big Cat's game of the year was the over in this one. And I looked at it and it was like 90% of public was on this over. So I jumped on the under. You almost have to in that situation. Yeah. And it was a low total. It was only like 55. So with overtime, I started to sweat a little bit because they definitely had the backdoor cover there, in the grass, but they didn't come up with it.
Yeah, that was a fun game. That was one of those games where it was like I was watching it on the TVs. I was out at the bar with some of my buddies watching it on the TVs, and I end up leaving and I'm going home, and I'm like, I'm sure the game will probably end in the fourth quarter real quick here, and I'll just see who wins when I get home. Yeah. Next thing you know, the game's going to overtime. I'm like up for another hour before I go to bed. I'm like, this is the best. This is why I love college football, especially out on the West Coast like that. I'm like,
it was happening late. Yeah, it was.
It was great. And like you said, it was an electric game, very back and forth. At no point did I think one team was, heavily, an edge. I'm like, man, it was awesome. I loved it. And that's why I said, I think BYU, man, they showed a lot of grit to me last week. So we'll see what they can do this year.
Yeah. They, and you know what though? They had a win just like this either last year or a couple years ago against Utah. And it was the same thing in BYU. And I was watching it and I was like, man, these guys are so good. It's something about those lights there, man. The under the lights.
Very bright. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something about the lights there. Let's move on though. A team we have to give some credit to is USC. Whooping up on Stanford 41-28. I think Stanford scored maybe a couple late touchdowns to make that look a little bit better, but USC was in control. This offense is electric. I still don't know what we're getting out of the defense, but it was a better performance for them this week, no doubt. But man, USC, I'm going to call it now, is going to be one of those teams, because this is kind of how Lincoln Riley was at OU. As long as they jumped out to a good lead, it was smooth sailing, because the defense now knows what the offense, the other team's offense has to go down the field. They have to take shots. And so it's easier to defend if you've got your opposing team locked into one game plan. And so if they can get out like this in a big lead, the sky's the limit for them. I mean, that schedule, we already highlighted it. So easy. One of the easiest schedules in the country. So
for sure. And Caleb Williams is cooking. I mean, we kind of knew he had
Caleb Williams for Heisman, man. We need to jump on it.
They're down to plus 300. We were saying it was plus 750 to start the year.
We should have taken it.
And I had that as one of my plays that I really liked.
That's right.
But I was like, it was very much like, this is still kind of a long shot at plus 750. But I like Caleb Williams. I think that this USC offense, like you said, is probably just going to keep, soaring. I thought they would have way more difficulty, on the road at Stanford last week. And they kind of just showed me, maybe that's not going to matter. So we'll see what happens. But just like you said, if they can keep getting down to big leads and they can just rely on that offense, doesn't matter if their defense has holes. So,
right, exactly. Oklahoma State, number 11 team, gets a good win over Arizona State. I thought that game was at Arizona State because of how late it was kicking off, but nope, it was just a super late kickoff in Stillwater. Good win for them. We do need to talk about Kentucky, Florida. This is a pick that you nailed. You were all over it. And you know what? It was probably smart, because this was kind of the anti-public play a little bit. Public loved what they saw out of Florida. Florida jumped all the way to 12 in the polls after just one win against Utah at home. Mm-hmm. And Kentucky went in there and just kind of bully balled them.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where I heard all week about how good Anthony Richardson is. And it's no disrespect to Anthony Richardson. I think he's great. I think he's going to keep having a big year. But I said last week, I think this Kentucky defense is a top 25 defense in the country. And they held him in check last year when they played, and they held him in check this game. He only had like 5 or 10 rushing yards on the day. And this is a guy that we thought was going to just be running all over like he did against Utah. They looked great. Levis did what he had to do. I mean, it wasn't his best game in the world, but he had a pretty good game still. I felt like he did everything he needed to do. They held Florida in check. It was one of those like overreaction games that we always talk about that can kind of happen in, the week 1, week 2. Yeah. And Florida got a little bit too much hype. Happens to the best of us.
It does. So. Good pick on that one from our guy Beast. Next, we had another ranked matchup. It was Tennessee and Pittsburgh. Going down in Pitt. This is another game that went to OT. Insane game that I wish I would have caught more of. It was happening at the same time as some others. I can't even remember exactly where I was at the time. Didn't get to catch as much of it as I'd like to. I think I was cheering for some of my other bets that didn't work out. But yeah, 34-27, Tennessee comes away with a win in Pittsburgh. Big win for Tennessee and this program.
Yeah, you got to be happy with what Josh Heupel's doing down there. I think that Tennessee, that's another team that we keep saying like they want to be back. These are the kind of wins you got to pull off. So they looked good. They looked really good.
Yeah, good win from them. I had the over in Wake Forest Vanderbilt as my in the weeds play. That hit easily. Yeah. Wake Forest looks to be pretty darn good again. A crazy result we did have though was Houston at Texas Tech. Texas Tech takes down Houston in OT 33-30. You had the over on that game. What was the number at?
It was at 63. So I pushed.
Oh no.
I got lucky because realistically
it took OT.
It took OT and it took
double
both
OT.
Teams. Yeah, double OT. It took both teams needing to score and then go into double OT. And I was like, you know what? If I can push,
that's a push you're pretty happy with.
Yeah, I could not be upset with it at all because if that was a loss, that completely changes, how my day went. So take a push there all day. It had no reason pushing.
Yeah. No, that's a fortunate one. Yeah, that game I didn't watch a ton of at the end, but the beginning it looked like both teams. I was cheering for your over, and it looked like both teams were just really rusty out of the gate. Took some time for them to get going, but luckily for you, they did, and at least got that push.
Yep.
Let's look. There's some other results. I had the over in North Carolina, Georgia State, and it comes up. We needed 3 points with 10 minutes left in the game, and neither team could score. North Carolina wins 35-28. Nothing too special there. It was a weird game. Like I said, at Georgia State. It's weird for these Power 5 teams we play in there. Crazy weekend of football. Kansas beats West Virginia in OT.
Yeah.
And the final score is really funny. So a rule that happened that I didn't even know was a thing. So Kansas scored a touchdown, and then West Virginia needed to score a touchdown to match it. Well, they threw a pick six. West Virginia did. J.T. Daniels threw a pick six, and they allowed him to run it back, and they counted the score. So I could see some crazy, if you had Kansas on some kind of crazy alt line, all of a sudden, instead of winning by 6, they won by instead of winning by 7, they won by 13. I don't know. So something could happen, or I guess you could have some kind of alt over. There was like 97 points. You could have took something live, I guess. And anyway, crazy game. West Virginia. I think Neil Brown's probably out. Shout out to our guy B Russ.
Yeah.
Any games you could think of that we missed here?
No, not necessarily. I'm glad you mentioned the Kansas game because
I almost forgot.
I'm not saying that Kansas is going to be great, but if they can put up 55 2 weeks in a row, I haven't seen offense like that out of Kansas in a minute. So this Daniels kid ran for like 85 yards on West Virginia.
Yeah.
Maybe he's this kind of, if he can beat teams on the ground, we might have something with Kansas. They might be somebody like that you just expect is one of those easy W's, and they pop you on the road, Like
definitely might want some overs with that team because I think they are the number one scoring offense right now in college football, which is insane.
Yeah.
Only 2 weeks in, but still, that's pretty impressive.
Right.
I think before we switch over, I wanted real quick, Beast, for each of us to talk about our games for our team. OU played Kent State this weekend, win 33-3. It was not a pretty first half for OU. They were down 0-3 for most of it. They score right before the half to go up 7-3. Then the second half, they kind of just put their foot on the gas. They didn't cover, just barely. But the defensive effort was insane. I think that's the difference in this team. I think we're a defensive team. I think OU is a defensive team now. I think it's switched. The offense is still going to be good at times, but it's going to struggle at times too. I mean, if you can't score against Kent State, even if you're running your vanilla plays, it's not pretty. But that defense is going to bail them out of some spots this year. I'm going to call it now. And I think that's why I like them to cover this weekend against Nebraska, not just a homer pick. But I don't know how Nebraska is going to score a lot of points against this team. Although Nebraska's offense isn't terrible, that's definitely not the worst half of the team. Definitely the defense is. But I just think I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be a tight matchup, I'm sure, because the line's not that crazy, only 11 points. But anyway, what I was getting at is OU looked pretty good. The defense especially looked great. Now we're on to Nebraska. So that's the OU bit.
Right.
What do you got?
No, they're doing good. I think you're right. It's a little different seeing OU with this. They're more defense oriented now. And like you said, with Lincoln Riley, it felt like at times they were like, all right, we're going to score a bunch of points and just try to make sure that you guys don't keep up.
Just going to get a couple turnovers or whatever. Yeah.
So this Venables team's a little bit different. It's cool. It's a different change of pace for them. So I'm excited to see what OU can keep doing. I think with each week they're looking a little bit better, and they might polish Nebraska this week. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yeah.
So with Michigan State, I actually was, I was happy with what I saw last week. Obviously you dropped 52-0 on Akron. Like there's not anything to be like upset about. I will say I haven't been thrilled with how Peyton Thorne has played. He didn't throw any touchdowns last week. He only threw like 200 yards. He threw 2 picks. And it's like he's looked a little bit off. I don't know what exactly it is, but he's like overthrown some balls. Some of the interceptions haven't necessarily been like good interceptions, I should say.
Yeah,
it wasn't like it went off a receiver's hands kind of thing. I think it might just be him kind of trying to work things out. It's a little bit different offensive line, a little bit different without Kenneth Walker. But I have been excited about this new running back they got, Jalen Berger. I know they were trying to figure out with Berger and Broussard. But Berger looks great. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns last week. I want to say he had like 6.1 yards per carry. I'm not saying this guy's going to be the next Kenneth Walker, but I am saying he looks really good, and he's got a cool last name. I love saying Berger because I love burgers. So.
Yeah, man, I just saw that. I didn't see anything from the game. I just saw the score and saw they handled business. I saw Draymond Green talking trash before the game to the Akron guys. And I forgot that Akron switched logos. So when I saw that clip, I was like, who the heck are these guys? That A is all weird now. And
it's different. Yeah. So,
totally different.
Michigan State looked good. Defense, obviously, we could say, like, played great. This Jacoby Windman kid that they brought over from UNLV, I would have had no idea who he was because I didn't really watch UNLV football. But another transfer portal guy that Mel Tucker brought over, I think he's leading the nation in sacks right now. He had 3
Wow.
forced fumbles last week. Like, hey,
Beast.
let's go Windman. I never knew who he was until this year. So
Yeah. Sounds like you got a good one. And you got a good defensive coach. So the good
yeah,
defense part doesn't shock me as much. I'm kind of expecting it from a solid program down
yeah,
there in East Lansing, or up
yep.
there, I should say.
Right.
Yeah, it's north for me. All right, so let's talk NFL, man, because week 1 is here, or was here. It's kind of passed us by. We're sitting at halftime right now on Monday Night Football, looking good. The Seahawks are up 4, but we don't want to jinx anything.
Yeah.
Got to wait some football left. But yeah, crazy weekend. We already detailed that Thursday night game, I believe, with the Rams and Buffalo.
Yep.
And but that was a good win for Buffalo. Shout out to them, and shout out to our guy Meerkat. Sunday, where do you want to start, man? I'll let you start.
I guess we can talk about that Steelers Bengals game.
Yes,
Just because
OT game.
Yeah, because I hit on that one, so I did feel great about that. It's always nice when like a bet you give out, and it was plus
Yeah.
6.5.
Yeah.
That was that game that I said Mike Tomlin loves these spots.
Yeah.
And he went into Cincinnati and just outright won. He made Burrow look terrible. That defense was nasty. Minka Fitzpatrick is blocking kicks, like getting interceptions. I mean, they played great defensively. If Pittsburgh can just keep that up, they might actually be all right. Like,
it was a great spot to be on the Steelers. You called it Mike Tomlin. I heard it called like a rah-rah spot where he can just kind of motivate them and, hey, they don't respect us, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go after it. And you were all over it. And I kicked myself Sunday morning because I saw it sitting at 6 and I was like, why am I not on this? A Beast is on it. But it was too late at that point.
It felt ugly. I mean, I said last week on the pod, I was like, this is making me nervous. But I liked that Tomlin gave all of his players black Air Force Ones before the game. I think that was like a get ready for a battle type move.
That's NFC or AFC North stuff right there.
Yeah, man. I love it.
Yeah, it was a great win. I was on the Lions plus 6. It was a winner for me. Had a great battle with Philadelphia. They just I felt like the Lions just dug themselves in too much of a hole early. The defense started to come around kind of later in the game, just coming up, 3 points short.
Yeah.
But
that onside kick was so frustrating.
Lay that out because I was trying to remember exactly how much time was left. So they were down 14.
I believe at that point they might have only been down 10, and it was like 2 or 3 minutes left in the third quarter.
In the third.
Yeah, in the third. I was like, this isn't like you're down to 6 minutes left. And the whole thought process for some people was like, oh, I get why they did it. Like, they can't stop the Eagles right now, so you might as well see if you can get an extra possession. But I was like, that's just completely like giving up on defense if you make that move. And sure, it could have caught them off guard, and everybody probably would have, celebrated Dan Campbell if it worked. But no, it didn't work. And then now they have the ball at the 50. Like, it just, strategy-wise, they ended up only losing that game by 3. Like, everybody saw. Does that game change based on, like, I don't know. But they scored a touchdown on that drive, so I was like, dude, what the heck?
Yeah, and you're immediately down 17. It's like a whole different game. That was tough. Yeah, at that point, I don't know. I didn't like that either because I think Dan Campbell's one of these guys too. He's such a I believe in you guys kind of guy, and whenever you do that, the defense has got to be thinking, oh man, he's already given up on us. He doesn't think which I mean, they didn't have their best day, no doubt about it. But
no, that's
just
a
tough look early on. Again, a tough loss, but a good cover for the Detroit Lions. I was glad to be on that thing. Atlanta, New Orleans. Atlanta had a huge lead against New Orleans. New Orleans comes back, beats them.
Yep.
I mean, unreal. Actually, Atlanta had a chance to score at the very end with a 60-yard field goal they just missed.
Yeah.
These divisional games, man, they're crazy.
It was a great weekend of, all those divisional games that felt like were pretty tight.
Yeah, one we've got to talk about that was as tight as it gets for no reason was Indianapolis and Houston. Our guy, Southie Sharp, gave me a great teaser that was coming down to all I needed to do was just Indianapolis win. That's it. And instead they find a way to tie with Houston, who had some good moments early in that game. I think they were up, but I think they were up like 20-3 or something like that, and like never scored again. Or maybe it was 17-3 and they only scored 3 points. But either way, not like it wasn't anything. But I had heard before this that that Indianapolis Colts in week 1 are like one of the worst week 1 teams under their head coach. And I should have known, but I was on somebody else's teaser. You know, when those are given to you, parlays or teasers, you just kind of take them, even if you don't love all the picks. I was so close to hitting that. That would have really salvaged my Sunday, which was kind of average. It wasn't terrible until the Dallas Cowboys played, but we can get into that at the end if you want to. Where do you want to go next? Is there any other games you want to look at?
Maybe 49ers and Bears. That was kind of an unexpected result.
Absolute monsoon in Chicago.
Oh my
I think they
God,
said it was like
bad.
the hardest rain they've had in like 5 years or something crazy.
I believe it.
And I mean, it was as sloppy as that sounds. That's how it was. And there was just pools of water on the field, which is something else to see. And guys just falling everywhere. It played out really funky, really weird game. San Francisco had a big lead. Well, not even a big lead. It felt like they should have a big lead, but I think they're only up like 10-3 or something.
Yeah,
and
that was just an ugly.
Chicago
ugly
took
game.
over the second half. And the one thing I thought was cool, and shout out to our guy, VFC, aka JD. He's a big Bears guy, and he sent us that video, or I think he sent it to me, DM'd me or something. But it's Justin Fields and the team. After they take that last knee, they all run in the end zone and slide on the water.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. It's like a team moment.
It was.
Good win for a young team and a head coach in a new spot. But we'll see. It wasn't pretty, but again, the conditions played a big role too. So who knows?
Yeah, I was high on this 49ers team. I gave out over 10 wins, so that's not one you need to drop. Like,
No,
I
you
kind of
need
was
that.
looking at that like, this is going to be a little bit trickier now. Suddenly
Yeah.
we're sweating on a bet in week 1. But let's see. Trey Lance has got to get it going. I can't fault him too much because you said like the weather was so bad, but
It's his third start too, right?
like, yeah,
I mean-
he's pretty much a rookie quarterback at this point. I know he's got like the 1 year in the system and everything, but
Yeah.
he's pretty much a rookie quarterback as far as experience goes. So
I was gonna say it's a lot different actually being on the field versus one game that we need to talk about too. Cleveland, Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Carolina kicks a field goal to go up 1 and looking like they're going to get the dub. Jacoby Brissett leads them all the way down the field. Baker kind of had an up and down day. He ended up with some pretty solid numbers, but he did throw a really bad interception in the first half when the team was looking kind of down. They just looked rusty. It took them some time to start clicking, but I thought in that second half they were maybe the better team. But man, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, those guys are just, they're so good. Both those guys could start just about anywhere at running back. Nick Chubb with 141 yards rushing.
Oh yeah.
I have Kareem Hunt on my bench in fantasy, and he got like more points than just about anybody on my team. So just two beasts back there in the backfield. Not that much Brissett had to do to get this win, but they did a good job getting the win. That's something Cleveland hadn't won a season opener in like 8 years or something. You know, there were some ridiculous stats. So it was a good win for them.
Yeah, Cleveland's defense looked all right too. I thought Baker had his moments, but Cleveland did a pretty good job. They put some pressure on him at times, felt like, so I don't know what's going to happen with Cleveland, with Brissett behind, center. Everybody was talking about him, it's like, they might actually be able to compete and make the playoffs when Deshaun was in this situation. But now everybody's down on them. They might be all right because that defense, them and the Steelers are just going to be defense oriented, it feels like.
Yeah. Steelers getting that win. We already talked about. Maybe one other one we should highlight is Green Bay getting whooped by Minnesota. I was in Minnesota, but it was still a great win. It didn't ever really look close. Defense was putting it all over Aaron Rodgers. It was pretty impressive. Aaron Rodgers was pissed the whole time. The memes this year from that team, Green Bay, that is, I'm feeling like this is gonna be a big meme year for them. I mean, as mad as their quarterback was in week 1, it could get wild.
Yeah, we'll see how Aaron Rodgers holds up this year. He seems to be that guy that every time I want to doubt him and say, yep, he's not going to be able to do it this year, he'll prove me wrong. The 1 year when he did the, relax and everything. He told all the fans. Yeah. I mean, he seems to always bounce back in times of, distress. But it doesn't look great. He doesn't have a ton of guys to throw to. Maybe he just needs more time. They have that the rookie Watson. He dropped one, and
I saw Valdez Scantling had another big drop.
Yeah,
I heard a stat about him. I think he has the second worst drop rate in the NFL.
Wow.
Since he's been in the NFL. So while he's been in the NFL, but yeah, so he's got some receiver problems right now. We'll see how he gets it.
Yeah.
Gets it
Vikings
going,
looked
gets it done.
great though. That's the other thing to
Vikings,
take out of that
yeah,
game. I
we need
think
to
that
highlight them because they look legit.
I mean, I don't want to do it too much because they are like somewhat rivals with the Lions, all that, NFC North. I
Yep,
don't want to give
yep.
too much credit to any of these NFC North teams, but they looked great. I think that there's a lot of steam now on them. Okay, go and get the division because nobody
Yeah,
else looked good this week. Even the Bears getting that win, that was an ugly
it was
win.
a shaky win. Yeah.
So the Vikings look like offensively they were rolling between Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson might
You
be the best
gotta
receiver in the league
I
pretty
was gonna
soon.
say, I have him on my fantasy team too, and he's the reason well, he's not the only reason, but he's a huge reason why I'm gonna just blow this other team out.
Oh
He
yeah,
had 184 receiving yards. That's a lot of points, and he had some touchdowns in there too. So incredible performance from them. And then we should talk about the worst performance of the weekend, which goes to the Dallas Cowboys, losing at home 19-3 to Tampa Bay. And I thought the defense played really well. Dak Prescott injures his hand during the game. We lose a right guard during the game. We lost a receiver during the game. But the defense did a pretty good job. They only lose 19-3. Honestly, feels pretty good. That game was dominated after like the first quarter. Uh, I don't know what to say, man. It sucks. We're going to probably watch Cooper Rush for the rest of the season if you're a Cowboys fan. I'm
yeah.
kind of already punting on this year. I'm honestly glad we've added the NFL now because it's easier for me on Sundays to kind of ignore whatever terrible result the Cowboys have. I can just kind of go, well, did you see that the Bengals, Joe Burrow threw 4 interceptions, and like it's
Yeah.
easier for me my attention to get pulled away because it was just ugly. I don't know. Did you watch any of that game?
Oh yeah, I watched it. Like you said, it got pretty ugly for the Cowboys. Yeah, you're right. The defense wasn't really that bad. Like they played good enough where if there was something on offense at all, like they probably could have, kept it within maybe 3. They might have even been able to win it if they were really moving it, but Dak getting hurt. Like that's such a blow because Dak is the centerpiece, obviously, of that offense. Between his ability, he had one yesterday where he ran it. I was like, man, I haven't seen Dak run it in a minute. I didn't know what he would
Yeah.
do. They were talking all his ankle, and now he hurts his thumb. It's like it's such a bummer because he's a guy that we've seen him get injured before, where he's out extended time, and it just feels like he's had very bad luck with injuries. This was a thumb thing where he hit a
He hit a
defensive
helmet or
lineman's
something.
helmet. It's like, dude, how unlucky could he get? I don't know what's going to happen with their quarterback situation. I'm curious to see if they'll reach out to maybe like San Francisco and
Yep.
say, "Hey, is Jimmy G available?"
Yep.
Or
That's my top option right now. There are some names in that backup, kind of position in other locker rooms around the league. But Jimmy G to me comes up first. I'm seeing way too much Cam Newton. I don't want any of that, man. I'm
dude,
sorry.
Cooper
I think
Rush, in
he's a
my
good
opinion, would be just as good as
I know
Cam
exactly.
right now.
I'm sure he's a great leader and things like that, but man, I'd rather just see what Cooper Rush has with it, which isn't much. I think he's a Central Michigan guy.
Yep, pride of
I think
Central
he is.
Michigan.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, we'll see how he looks, but it's not going to be pretty. I'm pretty sure it's a tough early schedule for the Cowboys as well. I don't know, man. It's going to be probably a long year, but at least football is back. We had a great Sunday. You killed it all weekend. I did better on Sunday than I did on Saturday, but looking forward to our show Thursday night. Yeah, the Cowboys have the Bengals next, which we'll see what they've got. But
Yeah.
anyway, solid weekend of football, man. What'd you think?
Oh, it was a great weekend of football. We said Saturday upsets, Sunday upsets. If you're somebody that likes watching, football, like there was just good games all weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, even the top 25 games were good too in college, but I was just more shocked by all these upsets. I think we have more coming too with how some of these underdogs are playing right now. We might get a couple next week. So
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the possibilities are endless. OU Nebraska is going to be the big noon kickoff or whatever Fox is calling that now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we'll be on that or not, or if we're just going to tailgate regularly. Probably just tailgate because we're kind of washed up. But it's going to be a great time. Can't wait to send some content out. Shout out to Beast for the new the one big take, that whole segment. It's going to be a fun one throughout the year, and we're both taking notes during Saturday and Sunday so that we can have points to talk about, come back. And so that's going to be a great one to be like, okay, do I want to talk about this or this?
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. Anything you got at the end here?
No, it'll be interesting to see how, like you said, with the big take, we'll be writing our notes down. There's a potential I look in like week 7 or 8, and I'm like, man, BYU sucks. Like they're not as
Yeah.
good anymore. I don't know. Like they could
But
drop a game.
but that's kind of what's fun about it too.
Yeah,
Like you could
yeah.
also be very right.
So, yep, it's just about kind of seeing like week to week where we're at with our thoughts. I like it.
Yeah, it's a great segment by our guy Beast. And shout out to him, shout out to the Coda Cappers, and shout out to everyone who listens to Not Another CFB Pod. We have a blast making this, so be sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, or thumbs up the video if you're on YouTube. And we'll see you guys Friday morning. Peace.
Peace.